Hello everyone and welcome to the program. I'm Imana Amawe here in our Lagos studios. While the relationship between the executive and legislature has been in the spotlight in recent times, with what many term as a rather frosty relationship, it wouldn't be wrong to say that it hasn't been a walk in the park for these two arms of government. Then you might like to ask, what about the third arm of government? Where does the judiciary come into the mix in all of this? It's not been too rosy either for the third arm of government. From almost flagrant disregard of court orders, abuse of court processes, to the spotlight of the president's anti-corruption raid, which culminated in the raid of some judges' homes. And only recently, the House of Representatives warning the vice president to refrain from making inflammatory remarks that might hamper the separation of powers. In fact, the lawmakers outrightly alleged an attempt to usurp the powers of the judiciary by the executive in the matter concerning the confirmation of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission boss. Now it brings to the fore the issue of interrelations between the three arms of government. The arms of government, though clearly separate in their function, are actually meant to function alongside and complement each other. Has this been the case in Nigeria? And where have things gone awry? Well, let's get our conversation started tonight by watching how events played out at plenary last week and what's gotten the lawmakers ticked off. Take a listen.
The powers of the judiciary.
It's a motion that held the attention of the House. Sponsored by the minority leader of the House, the motion is on the need to prevent the erosion of the doctrine of separation of powers in the nation's democratic practice.
A statement was credited to the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osibanjo, to the effect that the appointment of the chairman of the EFCC does not require confirmation of the Senate in line with Section 171 of the 1999 Constitution as amended.
This statement, according to the lawmakers, is the problem.
The Vice President, if he has made that statement, number one, he has usurped the power of the courts to interpret the Constitution. And I believe that the EFCC is not an arm of any parastatal that you can just will their appointment without the confirmation of the Senate.
I think this House has the power to invite the VP to come and explain himself to us why he has to make this statement. Is he a way of ridiculing he wants to ridicule the parliament?
One by one, the lawmakers throw their weight behind the motion, which is calling on the House to urge officials of the executive to refrain from making statements that makes it appear they are taking over the powers of the judiciary. The motion also calls on the House to urge President Muhammadu Buhari to approach the court for interpretation of any conflict in the EFCC Act. But one lawmaker calls for caution.
Is to set aside the three resolutions as canvassed by the Honorable Minority Leader and substitute it with one resolution, and that is to investigate the veracity of the information that has been so credited to the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Those in favor of the amendment say aye. Those against it say nay. The nays have it.
Another amendment proposing that the National Assembly approach the court instead of urging the president to do so suffers a similar fate.
Those in favor of the amendment say aye. Those against it say nay. The nays have it.
The Speaker then puts the motion itself to a voice vote.
Those in favor of the motion as amended say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it.
The House Committee on Legislative Compliance has been directed to ensure that these resolutions are implemented. Lanre Lasese, Channels Television News.
Well, on that note, let me introduce you to my guest on the program tonight. With me in the studio is a former senator and the chieftain of the All Progressives Congress, Senator Olorinimbe Mamora. Thank you for joining us on the program. Also with me is a policy analyst and a former commissioner for power and energy in Delta State, Gloria Okolubo. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
And from our Abuja studios, a member of the House of Representatives joins us in the conversation, Honorable Tony Mwulu, welcome to the program. Well, let me start straight up with you, Senator Mamora.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. How would you describe the relationship between the three arms of government so far, the executive, legislature, and the judiciary?
Well, for me, what ought to be is interdependence, as opposed to total or absolute separation of powers. Because oftentimes I have a feeling that some people out there, or some commentators, they hammer so much on separation of powers. Yes, separation of powers within the ambit of constitutionally assigned roles for each arm of government. But in terms of wanting to achieve good governance, you will necessarily need interdependence as opposed to total separation of powers. I'll give you a few examples.